January 17, 1935, St. Petersburg Times, St. Petersburg, Florida. 4 fleeing convicts captured. Gangster and mother slain in Florida gun battle. Federal men trap Barkers in hideaway. Machine Gun Kate and son shot to death after 6-hour battle. Copyright 1935 by Associated Press. Ocklawaha, January 16. In a fierce machine gun fight, federal agents today killed 2 Bremer kidnapping suspects, Fred Barker and his mother Kate, and then assumably spread out a relentless net for other members of the gang believed to be hiding in Florida. The Barkers died deploying machine guns upon the agents from the 2nd story of a fine summer home they had occupied for some time on the shore of Lake Weir. None of the agents was hurt, however. While some of the federal men tore apart floorboards and ransacked the dwelling for the possible hiding place of a portion of the $200,000 ransom money paid by Edward G. Bremer, St. Paul, Minnesota, banker, to obtain his freedom about a year ago, others were known to be en route to Tampa and Miami, following clues. They were told by Willie Woodbury, cook, that the house here had been a rendezvous for members of the underworld during the Barker occupancy. A man said to have left the place last night was believed to be Alvin Karpus, also sought for the Bremer kidnapping. A couple known as Mr. and Mrs. T.C. Blackburn departed Sunday night, and their destination was said to have been Miami. Blackburn, the cook said, was Barker's brother. 4 $1,000 bills were found on Barker's body, but agents declined to say if any money was located in the house. The Barkers had spent lavishly. Barker was 32 years old, and his mother, 55. Having already disposed of most of the notorious Dillinger and Pretty Boy Floyd gangs, agents had been hunting the Barkers for some time on clues they had come to Florida. The Barker-Karpus gang has been described as the last of the free-running mobs at large in the United States. It was reported in Chicago that Arthur, Doc Barker, brother of Fred, had been in federal custody there for a week, but Division of Investigation officers denied the story. At the time of the Bremer kidnapping, Department of Justice men named Doc Barker and Karpus as those responsible for the kidnapping. The brewer was kidnapped January 17, 1934. He was taken from St. Paul and released February 7 near Rochester, Minnesota, after $200,000 ransom was paid. Shortly after daylight this morning, Department of Justice agents, led by E.J. Connolly of Cincinnati, surrounded the house on Lake Weir. Connolly approached and called to the occupants to come out. Machine gun fire was the answer and the battle was on. Augmenting their weapons with tear gas, the government men kept up firing, and it was met in kind from within the house. When the shooting ceased from the house around 11 o'clock, the government men sent a cook who had been working there into the building. He returned saying, "They are all dead." Ma Barker fell holding a machine gun in her hand, and a portion of the drum of ammunition had been exhausted. She had been struck only once. Fred Barker's body was sprawled on the floor with 11 machine gun slugs in his shoulder and 3 in his head. The dozen or more government agents who participated in the battle escaped injury. Rumors of the wildest sort flew about this little town. In addition to the rumor that 3 had been killed, later spiked, there were also reports of a number of men occupying the house. Opinion was expressed on the streets that both Barker and his mother were armed with machine guns. Another rumor, without corroboration, was that the mother, seeing her son fall and sensing capture, ended her own life. The Barkers' home is in Oklahoma. Ma Barker had been mentioned as the brains of the group and was said to have directed their activities in a number of bank robberies throughout the Middle West. Justice Department officials at Washington said inquiries would be made as to whether the Barker gang had been responsible for the kidnapping of William Ham, also of St. Paul. Ransom of $100,000 was paid for his release. It was an exciting day for the residents of Ocklawaha. There were only a few scattering houses and business stores, and winter visitors often pass up the place without knowing it. It is in the southern part of Marion County, near the center of the state. It is about 20 miles southeast of Ocala, the county seat. Most of the townspeople witnessed the warfare from safe vantage points. Neighbors availed themselves of the opportunity offered by the federal agents to get away from their homes before the firing began. However, there still were about 200 cars parked around the lake and in the streets of the village. Firing was intermittent. Guns would bark for 15 minutes and then a lull, followed by a fresh outbreak of firing from both sides. Witnesses said most of the shooting from the house, entirely surrounded by machine guns of the government, came from upstairs. Agents said they had fired 1,500 rounds of ammunition into the house, a white structure, which was badly riddled. Mrs. A.F. Westbury, living just across the street from the Barkers, said she and her daughter escaped the bullets by jumping out a rear window and running through a fusillade of lead to the home of a neighbor, despite commands of agents to halt. It was like war, she said. Her home was directly in the line of fire from a machine gun in the house across the street. Many bullets tore into her home. Mrs. Westbury told of watching the flames from the machine guns until several bullets spattered on the door, facing over her head. Early reports said the agents were seeking to capture the Blackburn gang. It was learned this report was due to the renting of the house from Carson Bradford, president of the Biscayne Kennel Club of Miami, by a man giving the name of T.E. Blackburn. The Barkers had been here about 2 months. Neighbors knew little about them, except they had a great deal of company, mostly late at night. Only a few days ago, a couple called Mr. and Mrs. Summer had left after an extended stay, neighbors said. The house had 9 rooms and was built in 1930. It faces Lake Weir and is of a colonial type. The bodies were taken to a morgue at Ocala, where a coroner's inquest has been set for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Residents of this small town said Fred Barker was lavish in his use of money during his stay here. Often, he bought commodities costing small amounts and paid for them with large bills without waiting for his change, some persons said. The Barkers' house here, residents said, had a radio, which was turned on all day long, daily, and their 2 automobiles also were equipped with radios. January 17, 1935, the St. Petersburg Times, St. Petersburg, Florida. Sholtz wires congratulations. Tallahassee, January 16, AP. Governor Dave Sholtz today sent the following telegram to Attorney General Hugh S. Cummings at Washington. Congratulations upon the success of your men in tracking down the Bremer kidnappers. We appreciate such work by the Department of Justice, which is in line with our efforts to keep gangsters and other vicious characters out of Florida.